Story number 1. Dreadful Whispers of Westwood. The soft glow of streetlights brushed against the pavement of Westwood suburb, a seemingly quiet neighborhood in the heart of the United States. You might call it quaint. A perfect place for families, the elderly, and those looking for peace. But as Halloween approached, I was soon to find out the dark history that haunted its foundations. It all began when my best friend Jeremy and I decided to explore some haunted stories for a Halloween podcast we wanted to start. We both had this passion for the paranormal. Jeremy was a tech-savvy kind of guy. I was more into the history and storytelling. We met Fiona, a local librarian, while searching for tales. She was a silver-haired woman with a whisper of mystery in her eyes. Jeremy initially thought she'd be a bore with her spectacles and unassuming demeanor, but I sensed more to her story. Fiona introduced us to Paul, a local historian and an expert on Westwood. Paul said, "Every town has its tales, but Westwood? It has scars." One evening, while we were interviewing residents, Fiona invited us over to her house. As I walked into her living room, I noticed a series of old photos hanging on the walls. Fiona explained they were all family pictures, going back generations, all residents of Westwood. As night thickened outside, she began her tale. "I was just a child," she began, her voice shaking. "My grandparents told me stories of the old Hawthorne estate. There was talk about rituals, strange happenings, and missing people." She guided us to one picture, dated 1910. A family stood in front of the massive Hawthorne mansion. In the window behind them, shadowy figures could be discerned. "That mansion," she whispered, "was where it all started." Paul, who had been silent till now, spoke up. "The Hawthorne estate was the center of many ceremonies. People claimed they were trying to communicate with the other side, to breach the veil between life and death." Jeremy, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. "Rituals?" Paul nodded gravely. "It's said they succeeded, but not in the way they hoped. They unleashed something dark." The next evening, driven by morbid curiosity, Jeremy and I decided to visit the now-abandoned Hawthorne estate. The mansion loomed, a behemoth of decayed glory. We ventured inside, with our recording equipment in tow. The air inside was stifling, each room echoing with a silence so deep it was deafening. We ventured into the basement. As we descended the stairs, our torches illuminated symbols etched on the walls, symbols of summoning and old-world rites. And then, we heard it, a whisper. Not from the room, but inside our heads. "Leave." It hissed. Jeremy, panic evident in his eyes, whispered, "Did you hear that?" Before I could answer, a cold gust swept through the basement. Lights flickered, and our equipment malfunctioned. A shadow emerged, an outline of a figure, long deceased but not at rest. Days later, Jeremy and I found ourselves back in Fiona's home. She listened as we recounted our experience, her face pale. "You've seen them," she said. "The spirits of those who were used in the rituals. They are trapped, forever bound to the Hawthorne estate." Paul sighed deeply, and every Halloween, they grow stronger, trying to reach out, to claim more souls. I realized then why Westwood seemed so peaceful. It wasn't out of tranquility but out of fear. A silence maintained to keep the dark past buried. We air our findings on our podcast, revealing Westwood's chilling secret to the world. Many called us frauds, but deep down, I know the truth. Every Halloween, when the air turns cold and the veil thins, I remember the whispers of the dead, and I pray for the souls forever trapped in the shadows of Westwood. Story number 2. Memories of Maple Street. Halloween always seemed innocent enough in the suburbs of Maple Street. The Crescent Moon neighborhoods lined with kids running door to door, their costumes shadows of playfulness. But every candy-filled tradition has a darker side. And as the last autumn leaves blew by, I, Lena, along with my friends, was about to uncover Maple Street's unspeakable horror. My college roommate, Alice, was a cinematography student, always with a camera in hand. One afternoon, in our shared apartment, she came across an old news clipping her grandaunt had sent her. It spoke of a mysterious fire on Maple Street, where a house had burned down on Halloween night, back in 1952. No casualties were reported, but locals spoke of strange figures wandering the property in the nights leading up to the blaze. Curiosity piqued, Alice decided to make a short documentary, hoping it would be a perfect project for her semester. She roped in two more friends, Ryan, an anthropology major, and Sophie, a junior journalist for our campus newspaper. Ryan, with his hazelnut hair and a perpetually curious look, had often shared tales of ancient rituals from all over the world. Sophie, with her raven black hair and impeccable note-taking abilities, was always ready for a good story. The four of us decided to visit the spot one evening. The remnants of the house were long gone, replaced by a modern residence. The new homeowners, a friendly middle-aged couple, had mentioned sometimes hearing footsteps in their home, even when no one else was present. Sophie interviewed an elderly woman, Mrs. Green, a resident from the 1950s. With fragile hands and teary eyes, she recounted how every Halloween, she'd witnessed strange figures dancing around the old house, their faces hidden under masks, chanting in an unknown tongue. The night before Halloween, Alice suggested a stakeout. We camped at a discreet distance from the house, our car windows slightly rolled down. Hours seemed to blend into each other until Ryan, around 2 a.m., whispered, "Do you guys see that?" Emerging from the mists, we saw them, figures, 4 or 5, their masks reminiscent of the old pagan gods, circling the house. A cold dread settled over us. Alice's camera captured every eerie detail. Their chants grew louder, and just as suddenly as they appeared, they disappeared, leaving a cold, unsettling silence behind. Sophie, her journalistic instincts kicking in, started digging deeper. With Ryan's expertise on rituals, they discovered that the figures were practicing an old Celtic ritual to communicate with the underworld. The chants were invocations, and the dance was a symbolic representation of the life-death rebirth cycle. The horrifying realization dawned upon us. The ghosts of Maple Street were not victims but perpetrators, practitioners of an old-world ritual that might have gone wrong, causing the fire. On Halloween night, as trick-or-treaters roamed the streets, we decided to confront these spirits. With sage and salt, we formed a protective circle around the house. When the figures appeared, Alice, holding her camera, shouted, "We know what you did." To our shock, one figure slowly removed its mask. Not a ghoul or monster, but a man with sorrow-filled eyes. "We never meant harm," he whispered. "The fire was an accident. We've been trapped ever since, trying to finish the ritual, hoping to find peace." The compassion in Alice's eyes surprised me. "Then finish it," she whispered. "We'll bear witness." And so, under the cold October moon, a dance decades old was completed. The figures, one by one, faded away, leaving Maple Street in peace. The footage Alice captured that night became the talk of our college. Skeptics dismissed it, but deep down, I knew the truth. Every Halloween, as children play and adults laugh, I remember the souls of Maple Street, forever etched in the annals of our memories. Story number 3. Echoes from Asheville. Asheville was a suburb cocooned in the bosom of the United States. A whisper of its name might evoke images of barbecues, kids playing catch, and pastel-colored houses with white picket fences. But by the time I, Claire, left Asheville, my memories of it were anything but quaint. In the fall of 2022, my childhood friend, Mark, suggested we document the lesser-known tales of Asheville. Mark, an aspiring filmmaker, had this glint in his eyes, which spoke of Cannes and Sundance dreams. I had recently finished a course in investigative journalism, so the idea appealed to me. Mark and I soon teamed up with Emma, a parapsychologist who'd been studying ghostly phenomena for years. and Lucas, a charismatic radio host from our local station. Emma had unearthed tales about the Hollow House at the end of Birch Lane. An architectural beauty, but with windows like vacant eyes and rumors that made the locals cross the street rather than walk by it. One afternoon, as Lucas and I interviewed old Mr. Thompson, a lifelong resident, he whispered, "Every Halloween, the Hollow House lives up to its name. It's not just empty, it's hungry." Emma, with her tools, detected strong psychic energy emanating from the property. One evening, our quartet decided to venture inside. The wooden floors groaned with every step, and shadows seemed to dance just beyond the periphery of our vision. In the attic, we stumbled upon a trunk. Dusty old journals lay inside, detailing rituals and ceremonies meant to converse with the afterlife. It was here that Lucas, ever the dramatic, decided to read out a passage. A gust of wind followed, chilling us to the bone. And then, the whispers began. Children's laughter echoed, ethereal and disembodied. Mark's camera picked up orbs and spectral shapes. Emma's instruments went haywire, indicating strong spectral presence. Then, in a chilling moment, a shadowy figure loomed behind Emma. Lucas, with remarkable quick thinking, began reciting a protective chant he'd learned during one of his radio shows on occult practices. The figure faded but left behind a heavy feeling of sorrow. Scouring more from the journals, we discovered that the Hollow House's original owner, a wealthy but grief-stricken man, had performed rituals to bring back his deceased children. But every ritual, incomplete due to his untimely death, left behind a void that tried to pull in the living every Halloween. Our video, which Mark courageously continued recording throughout, became an instant sensation online. But more than fame, it brought closure. Emma, using her expertise, conducted a ritual to free the trapped spirits, allowing them to finally rest. To this day, as I remember Asheville, I don't think of its sunlit streets. Instead, I recall that Halloween night, when the boundary between the living and the dead blurred. A night that taught me that sometimes, the ghosts of the past are just souls yearning for their stories to be heard. Story number 4. Whispers of Waverly Heights. My memories of Waverly Heights are tainted with a bone-chilling fear, one that lingers and haunts my dreams. It was a place where past and present collided in the most sinister of fashions. It all started when my best friend, Mia, and I decided to document the urban legends of our town. We were both postgraduate students with a passion for unraveling mysteries. Mia's cousin, Derek, a tech-savvy guy with a penchant for gadgets, offered to help us with the equipment. Our team was completed by Zoe, an architect with an interest in old, forgotten buildings. One chilly October evening, Derek came across a forum post about the Waverly Mansion in Waverly Heights. The legend was that on Halloween, the walls whispered tales of the past, tales that drove listeners mad. Intrigued, we decided to investigate. As we approached the mansion, Zoe shared its history. It was built by a shipping magnate in the 1800s, and was a site of numerous unexplained disappearances. The mansion, with its Gothic spires and ivy-clad walls, seemed to hide its secrets well. Inside, the air was thick with anticipation. It didn't take long before we experienced the first of many anomalies. Derek's equipment started picking up ghostly voices, soft at first, then increasingly desperate. "Help me! It's so cold. Why did they leave?" We followed the whispers to the basement. Zoe noticed peculiar symbols etched into the walls, signs associated with seafaring and protection against storms. It became evident that the basement was used for some sort of ritual, a plea to the gods to protect the magnate's ships. Then, as the clock struck midnight, a vision overcame me. I saw the magnate, surrounded by townsfolk, performing a ritual. It involved a sacrifice, a young girl, her life taken in exchange for the safety of his ships. The enormity of his greed and the darkness of the ritual became the curse of the Waverly Mansion. Mia, panic evident in her eyes, pulled us out of the trance. we realized that the spirits trapped were those sacrificed over the years, their souls tethered to the mansion. Derek's recordings of the whispers and our experiences became our evidence. We sought the help of a local priest and, with Zoe's understanding of the symbols and the layout, managed to conduct a purification ritual. The souls, long imprisoned, were finally set free. The whispers ceased. But the memory remains. To this day, when I pass by the Waverly Mansion, now a silent sentinel of Waverly Heights, I remember that fateful Halloween. The night the walls whispered their tales of horror, and we listened. Story number 5. Shadows of Shadybrook. In the quiet suburban town of Shadybrook, the past isn't as distant as it seems. I remember, with harrowing clarity, the events of October 2022, when the veil between the living and the dead seemed perilously thin. I, Jake, had recently moved back to my childhood home after college. My longtime friend, Sarah, a writer with a penchant for the macabre, had heard unsettling tales about the old Donovan mansion on the outskirts of Shadybrook. Together with Liam, an audio technician, and Emily, a local historian, we decided to dive deep into the mansion's shadows. Liam's dark curls and penchant for e-cigs were familiar sights. Emily, with her glasses perpetually perched on her nose, always had an old book in hand. One evening, as Sarah and I were sipping coffee at the local diner, Emily shared her findings. The mansion was once the abode of Lord Donovan, a recluse believed to be involved in dark rituals. His sudden disappearance in the 1800s left the town buzzing with whispers of curses and trapped spirits. Liam had rigged the mansion with mics and cameras. We planned to spend Halloween night there. I remember the cold wind that blew as we entered, making the curtains billow like ghosts themselves. As the night deepened, Sarah and I were in the ballroom when we heard a woman's voice singing a lullaby. The voice was soft, melancholic, and seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Emily, examining an old portrait, made a chilling revelation. The woman in the picture was Lady Eliza Donovan, believed to have perished in a fire while trying to save her child. The lullaby was said to be the same one she sang for her baby. Liam's equipment began picking up more anomalies, sudden temperature drops, distorted voices, and one voice clearly whispering, "Save us." The climax of our investigation came at midnight. In the heart of the mansion, we felt a sudden rush of cold air. Before us appeared the spectral form of Lady Eliza, cradling an infant. She spoke of Lord Donovan's descent into madness, his deals with dark entities, and the ritual gone awry that trapped the souls in the mansion. She pleaded with us to release them. Sarah, her voice quivering, read out a cleansing ritual she'd found in one of her occult books. With Emily guiding us through the mansion's layout and Liam capturing every moment, we conducted the ritual. As dawn broke, the atmosphere in the mansion lightened. The weight of centuries of sorrow seemed to have lifted. Lady Eliza's spirit, holding her baby, appeared one last time, mouthing a silent thank you before disappearing. We left the mansion with our evidence, hours of footage and audio, proof of the afterlife. But more than that, we left with a profound sense of peace, knowing we had freed the trapped souls of Shadybrook. To this day, when kids talk of the haunted Donovan mansion, I can't help but smile, remembering that fateful Halloween night when we faced the shadows of Shadybrook and emerged from the darkness into the light. Story number 6. The Haunting of Hollow Creek. The serenity of Hollow Creek, a picturesque suburb, belies its ghostly secrets. Even now, the events of that chilling Halloween in 2022 haunt my every waking moment and invade my dreams. My name's Alice. I was a graduate student researching urban legends. Sam, my adventurous childhood friend with a nose for mysteries, was always my partner in crime. We teamed up with Naomi, a skilled medium, and Ethan, an archaeologist intrigued by Hollow Creek's ancient burial grounds. One evening, while Sam and I were poring over old town records, we stumbled upon mentions of the Weeping House. The oldest house in Hollow Creek, its once majestic facade now lay in decay. But what caught our attention was the recurrent mention of ghostly apparitions and chilling laments echoing from its depths every Halloween. Naomi conducted a seance to connect with the spirits. I remember the room growing cold, and candles flickering violently. A spirit named Elaine communicated, talking about a forbidden love and a curse that trapped her soul. Intrigued, Ethan unearthed an old map pointing to an underground chamber beneath the Weeping House. As Halloween approached, we decided to explore it. I recall the eerie silence as we descended into the chamber. The walls were adorned with ancient symbols depicting a union between a local woman and a man from a rival tribe. Their love story, Ethan deciphered, was cut short by the village chieftain, and their spirits were cursed to never unite. As midnight approached, Naomi began chanting, hoping to aid the spirits. A ghostly apparition of a young woman, presumably Elaine, emerged, reaching out towards a shadowy male figure. Suddenly, the chamber resonated with the cries of 1,000 souls. Sam, clutching an old tribal amulet he had found earlier, instinctively placed it in a crevice in the chamber's center. The room lit up, and a vortex of energy swirled around us. I remember the ground shaking, and the spirits of Elaine and her lover merging into a blinding light, which then dissipated, leaving behind an overwhelming sense of peace. When we resurfaced, the Weeping House seemed to have regained some of its old grandeur. The lamenting voices were gone. Our findings, documented and shared, made local headlines. But for us, it was more than just an adventure. It was about righting the wrongs of the past. Now, when I pass by the Weeping House, I no longer hear cries of sorrow. Instead, I'm reminded of that fateful night when love triumphed, breaking the chains of an age-old curse, and bringing peace to the restless souls of Hollow Creek. Story number 7. Mysteries of Moonlit Pines. Moonlit Pines, a sleepy suburb, hides a shadowy tale that only a few dare to recount. It was October 2022, and what was supposed to be a harmless investigation turned into a tale I'll never forget. I'm Hannah, an aspiring journalist always on the lookout for a gripping story. Teaming up with me was Clara, my photographer friend whose lens captured more than just photos. To bolster our investigation, we enlisted the expertise of Dean, an urban explorer, and Lucy, a parapsychologist passionate about understanding the unknown. A local whispered tales of the Crimson Mansion, a grandiose yet derelict estate at the heart of Moonlit Pines. Legend said that every Halloween, the mansion gleamed under the moonlight, and mournful whispers echoed through its halls. Curiosity piqued, Clara and I decided to delve deeper. Lucy, with her equipment, detected a strong paranormal presence, while Dean had managed to find a secret entrance to the mansion's underground chambers. On Halloween night, armed with cameras and sensors, we ventured inside. The house, under the pale moonlight, was eerily beautiful. I recall the haunting melodies of a piano, even though no one was playing. As we delved deeper, Lucy's readings went haywire. We stumbled upon an old diary in the mansion's library. It spoke of Lady Isabel, the mansion's last heiress, and her forbidden love for a commoner. Their love story was tragically short-lived as they were both mysteriously murdered, their souls believed to be trapped within the mansion's walls. As the clock neared midnight, the atmosphere grew icy. In the grand ballroom, the apparition of Lady Isabel appeared, dancing alone, waiting for her lover. Clara's camera captured ghostly images, while Dean, curious as ever, followed the melodies to the old piano, where he found an antique ring. Lucy suggested conducting a ritual to free the trapped souls. We formed a circle, and as Lucy chanted, the room was filled with a bluish glow. The spirits of Lady Isabel and her lover emerged, reaching out to each other. When Dean placed the ring on the piano, a blinding light enveloped the room. The mournful atmosphere was replaced by a serene calm. The spirits, united at last, faded away, leaving the Crimson Mansion in silence. Emerging from the mansion, the first light of dawn greeted us. The horrors of the night had given way to a story of timeless love and redemption. the tales of the Crimson Mansion's hauntings ceased after that night. Whenever I pass by moonlit pines, memories of that Halloween come rushing back, a testament to love's power to transcend even death. Story number 8. Whispers of Windridge Estate. Windridge Estate, a charming suburb, held its secrets close to its heart. But by the end of October 2022, its haunted past unraveled, and I found myself at the epicenter of it all. I'm Evelyn, a folklore historian, always immersed in legends and myths. Beside me in this unnerving tale is Kyle, my best friend and fellow enthusiast of the paranormal. We joined forces with Mia, a talented sound engineer with a penchant for capturing eerie anomalies, and Tristan, a seasoned detective, to unravel the mysteries of an old mansion in the estate. It began when Kyle stumbled upon tales of the Blackwood Manor, infamous for its chilling legend. Every Halloween, eerie laughter echoed from its sealed chambers, and shadows flitted across its overgrown gardens. One evening, as Mia was setting up her equipment, she captured a voice whispering, "Find the locket, set us free." We felt a tangible sadness in the air. Tristan discovered records of twin sisters, Lila and Lena, who once lived in the manor. A tragic fire had engulfed the mansion, and while their bodies were never found, they were presumed dead. Driven by the eerie voice, we started our search. Each room felt like stepping back in time. Mia's recorders picked up ghostly giggles and soft singing, always hinting at the elusive locket. One evening, as a storm raged outside, we found a hidden room behind the grand library. Inside, there was an ornate box, and when I opened it, I found a delicate silver locket with pictures of the twin sisters. Suddenly, the temperature dropped. From the dim candlelight, apparitions of Lila and Lena appeared, their innocent eyes pleading. It became clear they had been trapped here, their souls unable to find peace. With Tristan's help, we reconstructed the events leading to the fire, realizing it wasn't an accident but a cover-up for a theft gone wrong. The locket was the last piece of their existence and their tether to the manor. Mia played back their voices, and we all sat in a circle, the locket in the center. Holding hands, we asked the spirits to show us what to do. The locket levitated, glowing brightly, and then shattered, releasing a burst of energy. Lila and Lena's spirits danced joyfully before merging into a radiant light, signaling their release from the earthly realm. When dawn broke, Blackwood Manor stood silent, its tormented past finally at peace. The story of our harrowing night, though etched in our memories, served as a reminder that sometimes, the barriers between the living and the dead are but a whisper away. Story number 9. Echoes of Evergreen Hollow. Evergreen Hollow, despite its picturesque setting, held a haunting past that I had the misfortune of uncovering in the fall of 2022. An investigative urge and youthful curiosity brought me face to face with specters from the suburb's tragic past. I'm Laura, a curious graduate student with a penchant for uncovering forgotten stories. My close companion in this tale was Alex, an old college mate and a firm believer in the supernatural. To aid in our mission, we teamed up with Bradley, an experienced archaeologist, and Nina, a medium known for her uncanny ability to communicate with the other side. It all began when Alex shared rumors of the Ravenscroft Mansion, a place said to be cursed. Every Halloween, shadowy figures were seen wandering its gardens, accompanied by whispers of a tragic past. One chilly evening, while wandering its dilapidated corridors, Nina felt a sudden chill. "They're close," she whispered, her eyes darting to an ancient-looking painting. It depicted a young couple, their faces marked with sadness. While Bradley and I dug through old news articles, we unearthed the story of Elizabeth and Thomas Ravenscroft, owners of the mansion in the 1800s. They were madly in love, but fate was cruel. On the eve of their wedding, they were brutally murdered, their killer never found. As Halloween approached, we decided to spend a night in the mansion, hoping to communicate with the lost souls. Nina set up a seance, and as the clock struck midnight, the room grew cold. I felt a hand brush against mine, and a voice echoed, find the truth, set us free. Over the next few days, Bradley made a shocking discovery. A hidden chamber beneath the mansion contained a collection of letters and a blood-stained dagger. The letters revealed a tale of jealousy and betrayal. Elizabeth's former suitor, unable to bear her love for Thomas, had committed the heinous crime. With the evidence at hand, Nina conducted another seance, this time to confront the spirits with the truth. As we chanted and called out to Elizabeth and Thomas, the atmosphere grew thick. Shadowy figures emerged, their eyes searching for answers. Presenting the letters and the dagger, we told them the truth of their untimely deaths. A sigh of relief filled the room, and the spirits, holding hands, stepped into the light, finally free from their torment. The sun rose on Ravenscroft Mansion, its eerie silence replaced with a newfound serenity. The echoes of Evergreen Hollow had been silenced, but the memories of that harrowing week would forever remain etched in my soul. Story number 10. Whispers of Willowbrook. The quaint suburb of Willowbrook was an unlikely location for a tale that still haunts my dreams. A tapestry of ordinary homes and tree-lined streets masked a macabre history that I was about to uncover. I'm Jake, a fledgling journalist hungry for a story that would catapult my career. Sarah, my photographer and confidant, was always by my side. We had enlisted the help of Daniel, an ambitious historian, and Amelia, a sound engineer with a strange hobby of recording phantom frequencies. It began with an old photograph Sarah stumbled upon in a yard sale. It depicted a dilapidated house, windows shattered, with an unsettling silhouette in one of the upper windows. The caption read, "The Meredith Home, Willowbrook, 1920. A visit to the local library revealed that the Meredith home was the epicenter of numerous unexplained disappearances in the 1920s. Intrigued, we decided to visit. I recall the feeling of unease as we first approached. Overgrown ivy covered the rotting walls, and an uncanny silence pervaded. Sarah immediately began clicking, while Amelia, headphones on, whispered, "There's something here," an unnatural hum. The first night we spent at the Meredith home was unforgettable. I awoke to Sarah's trembling voice. "Jake, someone's crying." Listening closely, we heard a faint wail, the sound echoing from deep within the house. By day, Daniel scoured old newspapers, discovering that the last residents were the Meredith twins, Anna and Eliza. Known to be inseparable, their sudden disappearance in 1920 had never been solved. On the third night, Amelia's recorder captured something terrifying. A voice, crackling and distant, murmured, "They separated us." Find where? Over the next few days, our investigations uncovered a hidden room in the basement. It was divided by a thick wall, and on either side, we found two small beds, old toys, and drawings depicting two girls, always together. The puzzle was becoming clear. The twins had been forcibly separated, confined to these rooms. The reason remained a mystery, but their anguished spirits clearly yearned to be united. With Halloween night upon us, we decided on a final attempt to reach the twins. Amelia set up her equipment, amplifying the eerie frequencies that permeated the house. Suddenly, as the clock struck midnight, the air grew frosty, and the voice from her recorder became clear, "Under the willow, together forever." Following the hint, we dug beneath the largest willow tree in the backyard. There, we found two small skeletons, hand in hand. The Meredith twins had been buried alive, their cruel fate sealed by an unknown hand. We alerted the authorities, and a proper burial was held for Anna and Eliza. As I left Willowbrook, the weight of the story heavy in my heart, I felt a breeze and heard a soft whisper, "Thank you." The tale of the Meredith home became my breakthrough story, but the haunting memories of that Halloween investigation will remain with me, forever echoing in the shadows of Willowbrook. Story number 11. The Vale of Oakridge. Oakridge, with its beautiful colonial homes and rich history, was the place I once called home. But now, it's where the fragments of my most haunting memories reside. I'm Alex, and I'd returned to Oak Ridge to sell my childhood home after my parents' tragic passing. My best friend, Lily, accompanied me for support. Oak Ridge was always buzzing with legends, but one stood out, the tale of the Hollow House, a mansion abandoned for decades. Intrigued, Lily and I decided to document its history, enlisting the help of Marcus, a local geologist, and Elise, an expert in paranormal phenomena. Our first visit to the Hollow House was during the day. Elise brought along a peculiar device she claimed could detect supernatural energies. As we ventured in, its lights flickered erratically, even though the house seemed ordinary, just old and in disrepair. But that night, everything changed. Lily shook me awake. "Alex, do you hear that?" A soft, melancholy tune played from somewhere, a lullaby my mother used to sing. We followed the sound to a room where a rusty old phonograph sat, its needle moving smoothly over a vinyl that wasn't there. It stopped abruptly, replaced by a whisper, "They shouldn't have built here." Intrigued, we consulted Marcus about the land's history. Delving into old archives, he uncovered that the mansion was constructed upon a site believed to be sacred by the indigenous people, a place where the living could communicate with the departed. Elise theorized that the house acted as a conduit between worlds. She set up her equipment, and as darkness fell, we heard voices of the past, conversations, laughter, cries. But one voice dominated, repeating, "The veil is thin. Beware the night of All Hallows." Halloween was 2 days away. We decided to spend that night in the Hollow House, hoping to understand the mystery further. Halloween night was stormy, lightning casting eerie shadows over the mansion. As midnight approached, the atmosphere shifted. It felt as though we were no longer alone. Apparitions appeared, people from different eras, unaware of us. It was as if we were witnessing echoes of the past. Suddenly, a ghostly figure of a tribal elder approached me, eyes filled with sadness. The living and the dead were never meant to coexist. Leave now, or remain trapped forever. As the clock struck midnight, the house trembled. The apparition started to become aware of us, reaching out with hollow eyes. Elise, panicked, began chanting, trying to close the portal she believed had opened. Marcus shouted that we needed to leave immediately. Grabbing our equipment, we fled, the mansion's doors slamming shut behind us. The next day, the Hollow House was silent, its windows dark. We decided to seal it off, warning others of the dangers lurking within. Now, years later, as I recount these memories, the haunting lullaby still echoes in my mind. Oak Ridge remains a place of beauty and mystery, but the Hollow House stands as a chilling reminder that some things are better left undiscovered. Story number 12. The Shadows of Everbrook. Everbrook was once a place of dreams, a quiet suburb where I, Jamie, grew up alongside my close friend Clara. The serenity we knew was, however, overshadowed by an old, dilapidated mansion at the edge of town, known as the Wraith House. Driven by curiosity and the daredevil spirit of our youth, Clara and I embarked on a journey to uncover the story behind the Wraith House. To aid our venture, we roped in Nathan, a historian with a penchant for the arcane, and Erica, a local journalist with resources to dig up long-buried news. One evening, armed with flashlights and cameras, we entered the mansion. Its insides were a stark contrast to its exterior, eerily pristine, with the air thick with an old perfume scent. Nathan began reciting tales of the house's former residents, a family, prosperous but with secrets. Stories had it that on a fateful Halloween night, a forbidden ritual was conducted in the mansion. The result? An eternally haunted abode. Erica, always the skeptic, began reading from a 1947 newspaper clipping. The headline screamed, "Whole family disappears on Halloween night." The article detailed how the family had suddenly vanished, with only shadows on the walls hinting at their presence. I felt a cold draft, despite the house being sealed. Following it led us to a study where old portraits hung. Beneath them, an ancient book lay open, describing rituals to bind souls to shadows. Clara, with a shaky voice, said, "Guys, these shadows, they're moving." And true to her words, they were. The portrait's occupants were walking, dancing, celebrating. But it was the shadows on the mansion's walls that sent chills down our spines. They gestured to us, beckoning. Nathan hypothesized that the family, lured by promises of eternal life, had bound their souls to their shadows, becoming prisoners in their home. As we tried to process this revelation, the room grew cold. A voice, ethereal but clear, whispered, "Join us." The shadows lunged towards us. In the chaos, Erica managed to slam the ritual book shut. The room returned to its lifeless state, but the sense of foreboding remained. We hurriedly left, sealing the mansion's doors. The town council, after hearing our account, cordoned off the property. As I pen down these memories, the realization hits hard. Our shadows, they're a tad darker now. And every Halloween, I can't shake off the feeling that the residents of Wraith House are still beckoning us to join their eternal dance. Story number 13. The Whispers of Hawthorne Heights. Hawthorne Heights, a suburb on the fringes of Boston, was where my childhood was steeped in innocence. I, Alex, alongside my childhood friend Lily, experienced many firsts there. However, there was one Halloween that neither time nor age could erase from my memory. It all began when Lily discovered a peculiar, hand-drawn map in her grandmother's attic. It pointed towards a forgotten part of Hawthorne Heights, a secluded area marked the Whispering Woods. Intrigued, we decided to investigate, bringing along Derek, an archaeology enthusiast, and Rosa, a budding paranormal investigator. On a mist-covered Halloween evening, I drove us to the edge of the Whispering Woods. The air was thick with anticipation. As we ventured deeper, our torches illuminated old symbols etched onto trees. Derek recognized them as ancient protection symbols. Rosa's equipment began picking up erratic electromagnetic frequencies. The atmosphere was undeniably eerie. Lily, with her voice barely above a whisper, recalled an old legend her grandmother once told her. Centuries ago, the woods were home to a coven, practicing benevolent magic. However, a dark entity, wanting to harness their power, tormented them. On a Halloween night, the coven attempted to seal this entity. Something went wrong, and their souls were trapped in the woods, destined to whisper their tales forever. As if on cue, hushed voices surrounded us. "Help us, release us," they murmured. Our group, both scared and intrigued, decided to follow the whispers, which led us to a clearing. At its center stood an ancient stone altar, surrounded by ethereal apparitions. The spirits of the coven. Rosa, ever the brave one, communicated with the spirits using her equipment. They relayed their tragic tale and expressed a desire to be free. Their salvation lay in reenacting the ritual, but it required 4 souls. I felt a pull, an inexplicable urge to step forward. So did Lily, Derek, and Rosa. As we each took our position around the altar, the spirits guided us. As the ritual neared its completion, the dark entity manifested, attempting to thwart our efforts. But our combined willpower and the coven's guidance strengthened us. The climax was a blinding light, consuming everything. And then, silence. I found myself near my car, with the first rays of dawn breaking. Lily, Derek, and Rosa were by my side, equally dazed. The woods, once dense, seemed ordinary. But the weight in our hearts was gone. Returning to Hawthorne Heights, we swore to keep our adventure a secret. But every year, as Halloween approaches, I'm reminded of the souls we freed and the eternal bond we forged that fateful night in the Whispering Woods. Story number 14. The Shadows of Elmstone Hollow. Elmstone Hollow, an innocuous suburb near Charleston, was the place where the boundary between my dreams and reality began to blur. My name's Matt, and my closest friend, Jenna, lived just a few houses away. Our paths first crossed in the eeriest way possible, both of us had experienced a hauntingly similar dream about an abandoned house in our suburb. Given our mutual curiosity, it was only a matter of time before we decided to visit that dilapidated structure. We enlisted the help of Brian, a local journalist with a knack for uncovering mysteries, and Isabel, a historian passionate about the colonial era. It was a gloomy afternoon when I drove us to the house. Its time-worn exterior, with windows like lifeless eyes, gave us an unsettling welcome. As we navigated through its creaking corridors, Jenna whispered stories she'd heard. The house belonged to the Harrington family in the 1700s, who vanished without a trace one Halloween night. Inside, the air was cold, a stark contrast to the summer heat outside. Old portraits adorned the walls, their eyes seemingly following us. In a dusty old study, Isabel discovered a journal dated back to 1776, belonging to Lady Harrington. Reading aloud, we learned about an obscure ritual to summon spirits from the other realm. The last entry, dated October 31st, ended abruptly with "They are here." Suddenly, the room grew colder. Shadowy figures appeared, resembling the family from the portraits. They looked distressed, mouthing silent words. With Brian's camera capturing everything, we realized that these spirits were trapped, their restless energy palpable. Isabel, deducing from the journal, suggested that another ritual could release them. But it needed to be performed at midnight. Waiting in that haunted atmosphere was nerve-wracking. Every creak, every whisper sent shivers down our spines. Midnight arrived. Under Isabel's guidance, and with Jenna and I as participants, the ritual began. Brian documented, ensuring every moment was caught on tape. Candles flickered, winds howled, and the shadows grew more distinct, their eyes filled with hope. Suddenly, a force yanked the journal from Isabel's hands, pages flying everywhere. A dark, malevolent entity, distinct from the trapped spirits, emerged. It was the entity the Harringtons had accidentally summoned, and it had trapped them ever since. Jenna, thinking quickly, started reciting a banishing chant she'd once read about. The entity, thrashing and roaring, slowly faded away, leaving behind a serene atmosphere. The Harrington spirits, now free, gave us a nod of gratitude before vanishing. As dawn broke, we left the house, the weight of the night's events heavy on our minds. The story was covered in local news, thanks to Brian, and the house was soon restored as a historical site, with Isabel as its caretaker. To this day, every time Halloween nears, I remember the night at Elmstone Hollow, our confrontation with the shadows of the past, and the bonds forged in the face of the unknown. Story number 15. Whispers in Winterwood. I remember the chill that had nothing to do with the season as I made my way through Winterwood, a leafy suburb on the outskirts of Chicago. My name is Alex, and although I've always been a rational, skeptical journalist, the events I'm about to recount have haunted my nights since. My colleague, Emily, had recently moved to Winterwood. She'd called me one night, her voice tremulous, recounting bizarre events in her new home. Whispered voices in the dark, cold spots in the middle of rooms, and doors that creaked open by themselves. I was skeptical, but her distress was genuine. Deciding to look into it, I reached out to two locals reputed to have unique insights, Derek, a renowned parapsychologist, and Lily, an urban historian with a penchant for the macabre. I remember walking into Emily's Victorian-era house. It felt like stepping back in time. Derek began setting up his equipment, infrared cameras, EMF meters, while Lily dived into the history of the place. Apparently, the house had once been owned by the Blackwoods, a family with a dark past and rumored ties to the occult. The first sign that something was amiss came that very evening. As I was interviewing Emily in the living room, Derek's equipment started buzzing wildly. His voice shaky, he whispered that the readings were off the charts, something he'd never seen before. That night, the four of us decided to stay over. As the clock struck midnight, the true horror began. We heard a soft chanting, growing louder with each passing second. Following the noise, We found ourselves in the basement, where Lily found a hidden room. The walls were adorned with symbols and old photographs, one of which resembled Emily. Suddenly, an icy gust enveloped us. Transparent figures began to materialize, and I realized we were in the presence of the Blackwoods. Their eyes were sad, and their voices pleaded for release. As it turned out, they had been bound to the house by a malevolent ancestor, a powerful warlock, as a punishment for perceived transgressions. Derek, drawing on his knowledge, believed that a ritual could free the spirits. But it had to be done by a descendant. That's when we realized the resemblance between Emily and the photo. She was the last living Blackwood. Under Derek's guidance, with Lily and me as witnesses, Emily began the ritual. Words in a language I didn't understand echoed through the room. As she chanted, the room grew brighter, the oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the spirits of the Blackwoods slowly faded away, mouthing their gratitude. I drove away from Winterwood the next day, a part of me forever changed. The horrors I'd seen were real, but so was the redemption. Every year, as Halloween approaches, I recall the night when the past collided with the present, reminding me that sometimes, the most haunting chains are those that bind the dead to the living.